Hey there, and welcome to our first edition of Building Perspectives. I'm Simon Keemer. I'm an assurance director here at Dean Dorton. I've been with the firm probably about 12 years, career-wise 23 years. Spent most of my career working in the construction industry, doing a whole range of things for our clients.
And I'm Mike McCreary. I'm a tax director here at Dean Dorton. I've been practicing for 28 years. I've been at Dean Dorton for 16 years, something like that. I lose count. But been in construction most of my career.
So we thought we'd start off the building perspectives with looking at the economy and where we are right now. I think we're currently facing what we can call the triple threat. We've got inflation and prices going up on us, supply chain issues, had those since the beginning of COVID, and then labor shortages, which have been in the construction industry for probably the past decade.
Yeah.
I think today we can get through inflation and supply chain and maybe look at labor issues and what's been going on there next time out.
Yeah, and really what we're talking about, Simon, I believe, is probably profit fade, shrinking margins. We're talking about job delays because of COVID, because of these issues, because of the supply chain issues. I think there's kind of a mountain of things we're talking about.
Yes, indeed. I mean, in terms of inflation, recently had the Feds go up another 0.75%. So that's obviously going to impact. And we thought these supply chain issues was a COVID thing. The Feds themselves, through last year from June to December, when they were talking about, inflationary pressures, we're talking about transitory pressures. They thought it would be short term. I think most people thought the supply chain issues was a COVID thing, would go away. Well, we're now 2022. We've been around COVID for a couple of years now, and those supply chain issues really don't seem to be changing. So, I think we're looking at some of this stuff is going to last for a few more years yet. And looking at the Fed tightening monetary policy with their interest rates, I mean, they're working on the demand side. Mm-hmm. That's what it's going to impact. Fed's tightening monetary policy, that is designed to impact demand. That's really not going to help with our supply chain issues, our labor issues. So we'll see what the future has in store for that, for sure. And then other things going on. 30-year mortgage rate, fixed mortgage rate, 7% now.
Wow.
I mean, when was it the last time we saw 7% on mortgages?
I would say 7% mortgages probably in the 90s.
Yep.
I would say. I mean, it may have dripped into the early 2000s, but for the most part, that's when it was. And you talk about this 0.75% increase that's happened over the last 6 or 8 months that we've started to see these increases in rates. And what we're going to be dealing with, especially a lot of our clients, is the ones that aren't heavily capitalized, who have a lot of cash to run their business and they're using leverage. Well, those extra percentages of interest points are going to hit their bottom line. I mean, they're going to start feeling it in their profit and their take-home cash. It's going to start impacting them if it hadn't already. So the heavily leveraged businesses, I think, are gonna start seeing a true impact on what they're going to be able to do long term.
Mm-hmm. And it's going to impact any negotiations you got coming up with your banker.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, what is your interest rate going to move to?
What about guarantees?
Exactly.
What about guarantees?
As
they start raising rates and profits start shrinking because of the increase in rates, is there going to start being some guarantees on some of this leverage?
I mean, I'm sure there's some banks out there that are going to look at the financial stability of companies and be like, you know what, we're going to increase your rate, we're going to put maybe some different covenants in, but we're going to want those personal guarantees back, or we're going to want you to start doing personal guarantees.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be all sorts of fun and games.
I think they're going to start looking at the equity in the business and saying, okay, if your equity isn't a certain amount, we're going to have to go with a guarantee.
Yeah.
And the regulations that hit in 2008, you've got to imagine that those will claw back into some additional regulations now in terms of how banks see businesses and the increase in rates and how much they'll lend and the guarantees. That's just my perspective.
No doubt. But then with inflation, I mean, we're talking now, inflation going up, maybe 6% inflation, maybe even more than that. I mean, I think I read the UK is now at 10% inflation. we've got, our younger people in their early 20s, they're thinking inflation is always 2%. They've never known inflation other than 2%.
Right.
You've got people out there saying, why are we even calculating inflation?
Yeah.
Because it's always 2%. Well, those of us that are older know you can go back and see, high rates of inflation. So for us, 6-7% inflation is worrying, but it's not anywhere where we haven't been before. But there's a whole lot of people in the marketplace now that have not seen these levels of inflation.
No, that's right.
And I
And
think
a whole lot of businesses who haven't had to deal with it.
exactly.
Yeah.
And that's impacting confidence
Yeah,
in
sure.
the economy for sure.
Sure.
I mean, you look at construction prices. Inflation at 7% looks low compared to what construction prices have been doing. Input prices for construction up 20% in the last year. I mean, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, in the last month, we did see them come down 1%, but how much is that is being fueled by the fuel?
Yeah, but we're seeing drops, though. I mean, we're seeing drops in steel. We're seeing drops in lumber prices. There are some costs that are starting to drop, or at least stabilize for the most part, and starting to come back down.
I mean, I hear you. Steel prices, wood prices, maybe they have peaked, but are we going to have sticky down problems? They rose pretty quickly, but is it now going to take multiple years to bring those prices back down?
Right.
Once a price is up there,
Yeah.
everything that goes up comes down, but sometimes it comes down way slower than
Right,
it went up.
right.
So, I just think we're going to be in this period of high prices for still quite some time to come.
Yeah.
I think maybe what we're
How
going to
are-
get.
How are clients going to deal with that? I mean, what are they going to? Are they going to be able to do change orders to account for these prices? What about some of these jobs that were bid in 2020 before the inflation started to really kind of tick up? We were in the middle of COVID, but they started bidding these projects based on costs that were 19 and 20 costs. So how are our clients going to deal with that? What do you in your perspective, what do you think is a good solution for clients as it relates to that?
Well, I think this is a case of good news, bad news. The good news is I think a lot of the volatility has come out of prices, so that's helpful. When the volatility goes and things become more stable, even if prices are high, stability is helpful.
Gotcha.
The bad news is, like you said, we've got clients out there with legacy contracts that had no escalation clauses in them. So now they've signed contracts that were based upon raw material prices that just can't be obtained in the market anymore. The only way that fleshes out is lower margins and maybe loss-making jobs, which then feeds us back to, if you've got loss-making jobs, do the banks tighten and say, okay, well, now you're eroding equity because of these loss-making jobs. I think over the past couple of years, our client base has become much more adept at going into those contracts and including price change clauses, escalation clauses, so at least it gives them some mechanism such that they can write a change order to get the increase in the prices reflected in the contract value.
Yeah.
But yeah, those older pre-COVID contracts that are still going on, most of those that we see don't have those clauses, and the construction companies basically having to eat those price increases.
And that's when margins start to tank,
Mm-hmm.
or at least start to dip some, enough to where it could be worrisome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And and talking about these prices, are they going to come down? My feeling is it's still going to be a few years before they do, because we're not going to solve the supply chain issues anytime soon. As we said, the Fed's increasing rates. That is demand side. That's not supply side. So when we look at the supply side stuff, we've still got the China lockdown going on. How long is that going to last for? Obviously they're taking a pretty heavy-handed approach to stopping the spread of COVID in China, but that's causing import issues and supply chain issues for us in the US. You've got Ukraine. Putin went into Ukraine thinking that was going to be 6 weeks. Here we are months later. No sign of that ending. Ukraine making gains, but then Putin draws down 300,000 reservists. That to me says this war is going to continue. And we're now on the cusp of the Soviet winter. So you know they're all going to hunker down there, so that's going to cause problems. Our labor shortage, it's been a decade or more in the making, the labor shortage in the construction industry, which we'll get to more next time. That's not going away anytime soon. And then energy prices. That's probably where the variability and the volatility still exists
But
in the
there's
industry.
positives, right?
Yeah, there's positives.
I mean, 31 states saw an uptick in hiring over the last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we've got that. Out of those states, all of them said these construction companies said, hey, we'd hired more. If we
that's
could.
true.
That goes back to the labor shortage a little bit, because I think that they probably hired as much as they could.
Mm-hmm.
The KPIs for architecture and design, those are up, and those are an indicator that things are good, and bidding is going on. Things are churning. We had the Infrastructure Act. That has helped some things. I mean, we've had some things coming about that I feel like have been helpful and is positive in nature for our industry.
True, there's positive indicators out there. I mean, you look at architectural billings and engineering billings being an indicator of growth, okay. But with increasing prices and high prices, how many of those projects are actually going to end up being performed? Is an owner going to have something designed and then go out and have it bid, see the price of the bid and be like, whoa, we're going to have to hold on here, and wait to see what's going to happen and maybe mothball those projects for a couple of years. But I agree, the architectural design KPIs look good. Multifamily construction looks good. So there are some positive indicators out there. I still just keep coming back to, you look at the economists for the CFMA, the AGC, the ABC. There's a bit of difference of opinion as to whether we're in recession now. I think most people think we're not right now. There's more debate about whether we'll go into recession in 2023. A lot of people think yes to 2023. A lot of people think, well, maybe no, maybe we escape 2023. But generally, all of the economists out there think 2024, 2025, we don't avoid it. We're in recession by 2024, 2025. Wow. So, it's imperative that, take heart from the good stuff, but let's not be blind to what's coming down the pike, and let's start doing some stuff to prepare ourselves for if a recession does come next year or the year after. If we prepare ourselves, it doesn't happen, at least, we've got some good structures in place. The whole, hope for the best, prepare for the worst.
Yeah, and I think that's really the message. We want to avoid, as clients want to avoid an 2008 type of look to the recession. We don't have the same issues we had in 2008, but still, if we hit a recession, you've got to try to protect yourself as much as you can.
Definitely. So, it may not be great looking out, but let's make hay while the sun shines somewhat right now.
Right.
and work on those jobs, work on our internal policies and practices, and let's get ourselves ready to hunker down maybe next year or the year after.
Yeah, awesome. Good to see you, Simon.
Good to see you too, Mike. And thanks for joining us here on Building Perspectives. We'll see you next time.